turn to the book of Daniel. Turn to the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 1. This is actually what Daniel actually means. The name Daniel means God is my judge. God is my judge. And Daniel has been a popular name for quite some time. It peaked in the 80s, and now it's kind of in the category of a smaller percentage, but still, people are naming their children Daniel. Also notice, this is the areas of the world where the name Daniel is being used, and children are actually still being named Daniel and variations of Daniel. So it's purely Daniel, and that's green. And then the other colors actually represent variations of Daniel. And of course, there's Danielle, which is the female version, and so on. But I want to point out also the timetable of Daniel to give you some perspective. Now, this is obviously not a technical chart. It's not to scale. Okay, those of you that are detail people, I know that it kind of drives you a little crazy. But I want to give us a sense of the timing in which Daniel comes about and where he is. And Daniel is much like Joseph that we talked about, because Daniel is carried off to a foreign place and actually goes through some difficult times, and God has significantly blessed him. And Daniel, a little bit unlike, although we could say at Joseph's brother's hands, he went through some hard stuff. But the bottom line is that Daniel will face real persecution for his faith in a greater measure. So in Daniel chapter 1, verse 8, are you with me? We are taking a look here at Daniel and what he does. In verse 8 it says, "But Daniel resolved that he would not defile himself." This is an important decision for every one of us. Not to defile ourselves. Not to defile ourselves. He chose to actually follow God. I can't emphasize this enough. And I pause here because I want you to get it. There were records set at the Olympics. One you probably haven't heard about. More condoms were handed out at this Olympics than ever in the history of the Olympics. To the athletes. To the athletes. You notice that we had a little bit of an issue, truth or lie, a little bit of telling and so on and so forth. What I want to point out is, people, what we do really matters, no matter how much ability we have. What we do really matters, no matter how much ability we have. And Daniel, even though he's in a foreign place, even though he's under difficult circumstances, even though he's not completely a free person, he refuses to defile himself. To defile himself. Here are some phrases. Oh, nobody's going to know. Everybody else is doing it. Why miss out on all the fun? There are lots of things that are used today to draw us in to a moment to defile ourselves. To actually choose to compromise what we actually believe. What we actually believe. And I want you to notice here, one of the most significant character traits of Daniel, even at a young age, is that he refuses to defile himself. He refuses to compromise his faith. As much as he understands, even in a land and among a people who do not accept or even understand his faith. Then it goes on and says, with the king's food or with the wine that he drank. Therefore he asked the chief of the eunuchs to allow him not to defile himself. And God gave Daniel favor. You notice that? If you want the favor of God, I assure you it will not come until you stop compromising. Not to say you are. I don't know that you are or aren't. I'm not the judge of everybody. But I want you to know, if you are in a place of compromise, you will never have the blessing of God. You'll never have the favor of God. You'll never have what only God can do until you come to a place where you stop compromising. The Day America Told the Truth was a book several years ago. And it's important for you and I to understand, one day we will stand before God and nothing will be hidden. Hello? I'll say it again. One day we will stand before God and nothing will be hidden. Why not now? Why wait till then? Why not be open with yourself and with others and experience the blessing of God instead of the disfavor and the judgment of God? And I want to emphasize to us, Daniel chose not to defile himself and to be faithful to God, and God put his favor on him. He was not faithful because God put his favor on him. He was faithful and God put his favor on him. Do you understand? And so God gave him favor and compassion in the sight of the chief of the eunuchs. And the chief of the eunuchs said to Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who assigned your food and your drink. For why should he see that you were in worse condition than the youths who are your own age? So you would endanger my head with the king. What's he saying? Look, if I do this, I can get in trouble. I can get in trouble. And he's being honest. Then Daniel said to the steward, whom the chief of the eunuchs had assigned over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, test your servants for 10 days. What is Daniel demonstrating at this moment? He's demonstrating faith. You give God a chance, and I know he'll show himself to be God if you'll just let him for 10 days. Just let it happen for 10 days. Let me be faithful to my God for 10 days, and you see if it's a problem. Then let our appearance and the appearance of the youths who eat the king's food be observed by you, and deal with your servants according to what you see. So he listened to them in this manner. I want to tell you something. People actually do admire honesty, integrity, and actual values, even when they're not theirs. Most of the places that I worked before I became a pastor, they often offered me a better job. It wasn't because I went to church, it wasn't because I didn't cuss, it wasn't because I wasn't chasing all the girls at work, it wasn't any of those things. It was because I worked hard, and most of all, that I was honest. That I would not argue and I did not cheat. And I want you to know something. Employers mostly admire good people. They may not invite you over for dinner, but they will admire you. And I want you to understand, Daniel understands that God is going to show himself to be God. So he listened to them in this manner and tested them for 10 days. And at the 10 days, it was seen that they were better in appearance and fatter in flesh. Oh, by the way, isn't that an interesting opposite? Fatter in flesh. Anyway, just pointed that out. fatter in flesh than all the youths who ate the king's food. So the steward took away their food and the wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables. Verse 17, are you still with me? As for these 4 youths, God gave them learning and skill in all literature and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. At the end of the time when the king had commanded that they should be brought in, the chief of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar, and the king spoke with them, and among all of them none was found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore they stood before the king, and in every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters that were in all his kingdom. And Daniel was there until the 1st year of King Cyrus. I want you to see the Shema. I emphasize the Shema. I encourage the Shema. I ask you to put it on the doorposts of your house. I ask you to teach it to your children. I ask you to make it like something so well known, like all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onion, donut. That's right. And I hope your kids are able to finish it like that. Because I want you to understand that's what Daniel's doing. He is being faithful to God no matter what. No matter what. And he trusts God. And God shows favor upon him. And I want to encourage you and I to understand this for ourselves. Don't compromise. Don't compromise. Okay, now, in this moment, it worked out pretty good. It worked out pretty good. I remember when the school district actually invited the churches to come down and we had a meeting. And the school district was asking the Christians and the churches to actually bring their people into the school and to come and be at the school. And the reason they said that they would like that is because they need people to show the kids that they're cared about, somebody to smile, somebody to say hi, somebody just to be nice to them. And that the fact is that the kids really actually have a very serious deficit in social skills. And that they don't know how to get along with each other. And so they invited the Christians to come down. Okay? Somebody in the group, of course, raised to the leadership of the district and said, okay, how are you going to get by with this, inviting Christians down? What about the Satanists and everybody else? The secularists, the atheists, the agnostics, the whatever. This is what they said. They're invited too. They're invited too. But here's something we know. If we ask for one person, we will get 10 from the Christians. If we ask from others, we may get the one, probably not. What I'm trying to say to you is, folks, the favor of God is upon us when we are faithful to God. And God does things like he did to Daniel. You don't have to be able to interpret dreams or see the future. Okay? He hasn't done any of that. He's just being faithful and not defile himself. And God is showing himself favor. Showing him favor. And I want us to understand, if we love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, and mind, and we will not compromise and we will not give ourselves up, I want you to understand, it'll go well with us. It'll go well with this country. This country needs Christians to stand up and actually be Christians again. Now I'm going to skip forward all the way to Daniel chapter 9, verse 10. When Daniel knew that the document had been signed. Okay, what's the document that's been signed? You cannot pray to foreign gods. You cannot pray to foreign gods. Okay? Here's a little deal that happened. Some folks got a little bit envious. They didn't like all the favor that God was showing Daniel, and so they set up charges to get him in trouble. And what they did is they put him, his faith, up against the law and the king. And now it's become illegal to pray. Illegal to pray. What if it became illegal for you to pray? What if it became illegal for you to have a Bible? Well, it is actually in many places. I just want to ask us a question. How far back are you going to go until you finally stand up? Daniel knew that the bill had been signed. He knew that he was now going to be illegal. Daniel chose to pray anyway. Daniel chose to pray anyway. And he prayed in such a way that everybody saw him. That was the way he did it anyway. It wasn't like he was showboating or anything like that. It was just the way he did it. I want to tell you something that we're going to do in September. I'm going to ask every home, single parent, single person, multifamily, blended family, whatever. I'm asking every home to do this in September. I am going to provide you, if you would like, the book of Psalms, all 150, in a New Living Translation. I'm going to ask you to pick one of 5 on a daily basis and to read it as a family. Then I'm asking you to say a prayer as a family. Those of you who are single, pick up that smart or dumb phone you've got, call somebody and do it with another single or somebody else that's going to partner with you. But do it. I would encourage different people in the family to pick the psalm of the 5 psalms each day that you have to choose from, one psalm, and to read that psalm, whether it be the little, or the big, older, younger, whatever. And then pray as a family. Pray as a family. I can tell you right now, in 30 days, we will see changes in all of our lives. When we get in the Word and, are you with me? Pray. Actually pray. Actually do it. Not talk about it, not study it, not read things about it, but actually do it. And I want you to know we're going to do that as a church, so get ready, it's coming pretty soon. When Daniel knew that the document had been signed, he went to his house where he had windows in the upper chamber open toward Jerusalem. He got down on his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, and as he had done previously. Then these men came by agreement and found Daniel making petition and plea before his God. Then they came near and said before the king concerning the injunction, "O king, did you not sign an injunction that anyone who makes petition to any god or man within 30 days except to you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions?" The king answered and said, "The thing stands fast, according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be revoked." Then they answered and said before the king, "Daniel," and the king's heart sunk. I want you to know, this king loved and admired Daniel. And the king's actual heart sunk. "Who is one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention to you, O king, or the injunction you have signed, but makes his petition 3 times a day." Then the king, when he heard these words, was much distressed and set his mind to deliver Daniel, and he labored until sun went down to rescue him. Then these men came by agreement to the king and said to the king, "Know, O king, that it is a law of the Medes and the Persians that no injunction or ordinance that the king establishes can be changed." And the king commanded, and Daniel was brought and cast into the den of lions. Get this. The king declared to Daniel, "May your God, whom you serve continually." He didn't say, "Our God, my God." He said, "Your God, who you serve continually." deliver you. That was the king's wish.
90% born in the church, raised in the church, saved in the church, married and buried in the church, will never share Jesus with another person. No one had ever sat down with us and said, this is the job of a missionary. It was like getting in a plane in the New Testament and getting off the plane in the Old Testament. It was like I had flown into hell.
We saw what darkness was. We'd seen darkness in Somalia, and all of a sudden now we saw darkness up front and personal in our family.
But we had no idea what was coming. Out of the ashes of Somalia, and after the death of our son, we were compelled to return to some of the toughest places in the world for the gospel. There was something we needed to know. Is Jesus worth it? There begins a pilgrimage of sitting at the feet of believers in persecution and ask them, teach us. Don't you ever believe that there is a free church and a suffering church. There's just the church. I went looking for tools from God. And what I found was the resurrected Christ himself.
I want you to know that there are real Daniels in the world today. Regular, everyday people that live in places where their faith is not allowed, where believing in Jesus Christ is not permitted. And I think about my own kids that actually went to Sudan, and they didn't go to just Sudan, they went to northern Sudan, and they just didn't go to northern Sudan, they went to Khartoum. And I remember Hannah, and of course, we were scared, my wife was scared, it was not a very easy time, and there was disagreement as to whether they should do that or not, and so on and so forth. But this is what I remember. Hannah took her ability to dance, went to a woman's Muslim university in Khartoum, and danced a song of Christ before all of the Muslim girls. Something like 400 ladies were watching her, and they all applauded her. What I want you to understand, of course, then right after that, she had to run because they killed some people there. But I want you to understand something. Our faith is to be lived whether it's easy or whether it's hard. It's not when it's convenient, it's always. We should never, ever compromise. We should be Daniel today in our own faith. We should be Daniel today in our own faith. I want you to also know, why should you believe Daniel? Why should you believe Daniel? Well, in chapter 2, and in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed, nor shall the kingdom be left to another people. It shall break in pieces all these kings and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever. Just as you saw that a stone was cut from a mountain by no human hand. Now this is Daniel interpreting the dream to the king. A stone cut from no human hand, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. A great God has made known to the king what shall be after this. The dream is certain, and its interpretation is sure. And history is proving out that Daniel's vision interpretation, as well as the vision he was given, is happening in this world today. And that Jesus was the actual fulfillment of those things. And Jesus literally walked into Jerusalem on the day that Daniel foretold that he would. And I want you to understand today, folks, understand the destiny of history that you're involved in. This is not a game. This is not a story. This is actual reality. And you and I have been given the opportunity to live and to fulfill our faith today. And I want to encourage you and I to be like Daniel, to live as if we only have one judge, God. In your private life, in your public life, there's only one audience. There's only one authority. There's only one person that we should be concerned about. That's God. When Jesus came, what did he actually do? The Father's will. He did not come to fulfill and to manually complete all that was told about him. He did one thing. He loved the Lord God with all his heart, soul, and mind. I encourage you and I today, in whatever way, let us be Daniel today. We have but one judge, God. God. Live for that one judge. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what others think. It doesn't matter what they threat or anything. What matters is what God says and what you do with what he said. My recommendation for you and my desire of my life is that David will not defile God. That David will not defile himself with the things of the world, but will live for Jesus Christ, whatever that is. Amen? I encourage you, if you can, to see the film, The Insanity of God. It's only showing one night, showing in 3 theaters in Kansas City. So I don't know what the chances are. I really don't know what the chances are. But I'll tell you this, I'll get it here eventually. When it gets to my hands, I'll get it here, okay? And we'll show it here, and we'll make free popcorn, all right? All right, let's stand together. As we sing this song, if there's something you do that you need to do to be the Daniel of today, to be the Daniel of today, I encourage you to do it as we sing. If you need to step out to do it, step out to do it. Whatever it is, be faithful to God.